Hello, happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of the Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 183 for February 21, 2025. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantanet, joined capably by Patrick Anderson, Technical Support Manager for Plantanet, and we're glad you're with us today. Low-Code Campfire is an event that we do every Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time, which is an opportunity to get together to share techniques and challenges and experiences and generally talk about Plantanet and the low-coding experience. This is an all-skill levels welcome event. We record all of them and put them on YouTube, so we have 182 hours of very good content, and that's all available at youtube.com/plantapp. We run a pretty loose agenda. We always stop and say hello, and then we start around the campfire with first call and submitted topics. We'll get into some of the other things. I believe there's a contribution to our shared campfire website, the community portal, feature requests, things like that. But we do ask that you jump in and engage with us. You can show and tell, you can use the chat window, mostly just engage. We have open format. You can submit questions and topics in advance, and there's a topic that we've been kicking around here a little bit internally, and so we'll be bringing that up. But if you use this QR code or send me an email at support@plantapp.com, we'll put your topic on the agenda, maybe do a little research so it's ready to talk about. And with that, I will say hello. Hello, team.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi.
Morning.
So, as I said, we always start with first call. Did somebody come with something on their mind?
Hi, Dale. Jerry here.
Hey, hello.
As always, I've got something on my mind.
Well, good. That you're a regular. We need to yeah. I was going to say start paying, but we don't do that. So
That's all right.
for your guest appearances.
Yeah, well, I'm in debt to you guys for everything you do for me, and thank you for you do. My issue is something very, very, very simple in theory, and it just started showing up on me when I made it to 1.26. An action grid does not appear unless it has data in the grid. I'm normally with Planta app products. I've always designed many pages that have an action form setting on top of an action grid, and you search for some stuff in the form, and it reloads the page, and it loads the action grid with the data that I've requested. And in prior to 1.26, when the page first loaded, an empty grid would appear. Might say no data, but it would have the column headers, and it would have everything setting there as normal, my form sitting on top of it, and then my user would click in whatever they want to search on, press go, and it would load the grid. My user is a little annoyed at me because the grid, though it works and runs properly, it just doesn't appear until it actually has some data. And for the record, I'm using data table view and a SQL query for my source. And so anybody else seeing that? Could that be a bootstrap? Could that be relative to my theme? I did a little extra testing on a 1.25 test system that I have, and the grid does appear if it's empty, but the column headers does not appear. But it does, in fact, say no data in the data block, and it has the little search window at the top. So it does actually appear. But so in short, guys, it's basically like there's a switch somewhere that says don't show the grid unless it has data. Yay. Let's see what happens. Okay.
So there are some settings that might be impacting, and if anybody knows the answer don't let me just fumble around here. But we have enable search, Enable filters. Oh, there's a hide empty grid as a checkbox.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to mention. Yeah.
So let's try that one. So I would say double check this setting and also try checking it and saving it and then unchecking it, um,
Okay.
because it might
It's
be flipped in the wrong way.
yeah.
But
I mean, and this is clearly a page that's been migrated from the beginnings of time. So no telling what we might have inherited in that. Uh, with that said, though, the theme that we're using, we're making every effort now to remove any essence of Bootstrap 3. And on this particular page, it is clearly a Bootstrap 5 page, and we're pretty happy with how all the red ink has disappeared, warning us of Bootstrap 3 being loaded. Um, however, we're running on an Ozone 2 theme. And so when I went to this, my other test site, which is a testing area that Bogdan licensed for me years ago, I'm like 1.25 and I'm using the page builder theme and I'm getting the exact same results you're getting on this screen. I'm getting the no data box is showing, but my headers aren't showing. So it's like almost, it's kind of almost tied to the theme somehow. Maybe I'm getting different
well, I
results.
and and again, the extra site that you're working with has a different history, and you're creating something new. I'm
Yes,
I- I- I'd suggest a couple of different things. One, what we've already talked about,
absolutely.
turning on hide empty grid and saving, and then turn off hide empty grid and making sure that that setting isn't the thing that's impacting. And then another thing would be to go through the experiment that I just did, where you create a new grid. And in my case, I just created a new grid that had a valid SQL but was completely
Yeah,
uh,
came back empty. Right.
came back empty. And then that gives us
Hmm.
a starting spot. There's some interest. I'm sorry. That's kind of the end of my suggestion. Start there, because if you create a new grid and it has a different, it'll either have the same or a different behavior than what you already
Sure.
have. And if you're seeing a different behavior, then that says that something within the migration of those uh, existing grids don't didn't come up with the right settings. And so then we're in a setting search. If it has the same behavior, then maybe we take a look at uh, what happens when you move, for example, do that extra grid on a new page so that you'll be able to pick different themes on it. So you could try page builder and see if it's a different reaction than from
Got it.
um,
Absolutely. I can do that while we're discussing this morning. And
yeah, let's have a part two.
you know, and so
But
if you like, you can go help your real customers now, the ones that actually have value. So I'll play around with that just a little bit more and see what kind of reaction I can get. I'll go add a fresh grid onto that page and see if I can get it to come alive. Um,
so yeah, while you do that, and I'm gonna, and while we're here anyway, I thought it would be worth talking about. There's some settings in grids that are kind of useful to know. So, for example, the display, by turning off a lot of switches, we ended up with only the no data element, or so you can turn off a lot of the header stuff. I'm going to put this from a data perspective back into, I'm not going to have this where clause anymore, so we can actually see it work. And then just kind of show you. So we're getting pure data with no headers, no search, no filtering, and so it's kind of the minimal amount of what you can display in a listing. If we look at turn those settings on one by one, so there's the display title, which gives us the title block. users grid, whatever the name of um, whatever the title is up here gets displayed. There is enable search, which when you turn that on should give us the search box. Yeah. And enable filters. So one by one, this starts to become more complex. If there were filtering, I didn't have filtering turned on, so we didn't get anything. And then I'm just curious if we turn off display title, we should still get the search box. Yeah, we get the search box without a title. So you can have some kind of high level effects on your listings with some of those switches.
The other one that I mentioned is that you can also have just the search box without any results, and that selection under show data on search. So you don't get
That's a
anything in
great
the
one.
grid until you search. That's a pretty handy one, I think.
So we get a search to show results, and when you type, then you get something. Yep, very nice. Is that, do you know, Patrick, is that performant? It doesn't do any work before.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. Yeah, but I think that's the case.
So Dale, I would ask you to turn back on your heading and then so you've got kind of every possible thing showing and then hide the grid if it's empty data, change your query back to empty data and see what pops up. See if you see anything at all. Because I'm kind of getting little pieces,
All right.
um,
So we
mostly
enable
just the
search, enable filtering, show data.
like max out everything you can see and then hide the grid if it's empty and see what happens.
All right, make sure so we're,
Yeah, display title. Click display title at
and
the top.
double check your initially visible. Yeah,
No,
display title. Hide empty grid,
Yep, that's what. Yeah.
yeah.
enable filters.
Dale, on a side note, you had mentioned that um, our engineers may have gotten a little loose with legacy only guidance in our field. Hey,
Yes.
that hide empty, it strictly says legacy only, even though we're using a data table. So I'm not sure how much of that is just we just haven't cleaned up those pages or if it's actually wired to it or not. So I've been ignoring that and just kind of experimenting with everything.
So do you want me to start out with an empty listing?
Well, I think you just proved that your listing works.
Yeah.
Now do the same thing you did before, where you search for something that doesn't exist. So you're not going to get any data back, and let's see what comes up on the screen, if anything.
Hmm.
Oh, all right. How did we do that? Is it the uh,
Well, you
Did you change your data again so that it
I
doesn't
did.
give any? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
he did, and
So is
it was
it
kind of a mystery what I saw on the screen.
where did it go? Enable search.
And right above it, your hide empty grid.
Empty grid. Oh, that was intentional. All right,
Yeah, that's right. But
so hide empty grid did hide everything.
well, it it did, but it's still showing your header. I mean, your the title is still showing your search box. It's still showing your
No,
empty
no,
box.
I
I'm sorry.
unchecked hide empty
Oh,
grid.
okay. I apologize. Okay. So when you check that, did everything go away?
Hmm.
Yep,
Very close.
which is kind of the behavior you're seeing, right? Everything goes
Yeah,
away.
well, almost. I'm not trying to hide it though. I'm trying to show it if it's empty. So if now go ahead and uncheck that for me, please, the empty grid. And our query is going to return no data at all. Let's see what you see. And I want to see what. Okay, so that's a little bit better than what I'm seeing. But in legacy view, we would have seen the column headings too. It would have actually drawn out the grid and then uh, yeah, that's all you got to do. Yeah,
It's probably going to complain at me a little bit, but let's see what happens.
it's all right.
Yes.
There you go. That's the effect we're trying to achieve. Yeah.
So, yeah, it looks like we have a slightly different behavior there that doesn't show the column headings in Bootstrap 5. You just get no data.
And I think because I have the display, the title turned off, I have the search turned off, I'm not getting anything back. And that's kind of what's annoying my client is yeah. And then you may still get just the, I don't know if the body's the right word, but where it says no data, that may come back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's because you have filters turned on. Yep.
When I tested that earlier, um, when I initially brought the page up, it said no data, even though I hadn't done a search on the grid.
And that's okay.
So since you have the ability to change your message here, you might be able to accomplish or kind of fake your way into something that pleases your client.
Yeah.
You can nothing to see here, or start by filtering on the form, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. It would be at that point we would ask them to search for whatever they're looking for, and they would use my form that's setting on top of that grid to achieve that, and then it would be fine. I'll play with that just for a second. Just one of those little things that where there's change, there will be differences, and that's what we're noticing
Um, I
on our report pages.
So I'll just say that computer users and Baptists, we don't like change.
Yeah, trust me, Dennis and I are feeling that pretty heavy right now.
All right. Yep, I would say that's just I mean, it is definitely a different behavior, right? You don't see the column headings. So it's change, and from a there's nothing here standpoint, it's still representing there's no data and giving you the no data message, but for whatever reason we omitted the headers. So interesting. Good one. Good mystery.
All right.
Anyone else with a first call?
I have a quick one. I hope it's a quick one. First of all, I thought it was Lutherans that don't like change. That's what I recall.
It's
What is
actually
it?
humans, or pick a subgroup.
Pick a subgroup. My question is this. I've got good news in that I have a new client who really liked what we did for another client and wants us to pretty much copy the system and for them. So in terms of taking an existing plan and app structure, a number of entities, a number of forms, et cetera, workflows and automations, is there a particular order for moving it all over? I'm assuming that I would be just doing a lot of exporting and importing. And I figure I would start with my entities and then my forms and then my workflows and then my automations, and was wondering if that's what I would do.
So I would say that workflow, I agree, starting with entities, and your order of entities becomes a little bit important if you have entities that use other entities in the as a type. So starting with the most detailed ones and working your way up. But I would do workflows for, right after entities because workflows generate actions, and those actions might be used in your forms.
Ah,
So if you do your forms first, those actions aren't going to import and or may not import correctly. So I would say do the workflows first.
got it.
Um,
And then I just
okay.
realized I missed tokens, which of course
Yep.
probably do those first. Um,
Same with APIs. I don't know if you're doing any if you have any APIs
I don't think so for this application.
because potentially you could have um, uh, forms that call APIs. Um, Patrick, any other guidance you would add?
I don't think so. No.
Just bring up the roles. If you have any roles, those would be good to create first. Um, because roles could be called upon in entities. So that's a thing. Um, then workflows, tokens. Yeah, I would do everything on this page before I started with listings and grids and tabs because that'll keep you out of trouble.
That makes sense. All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely, great question.
Not to get political, but I think it's called Democrats don't like change.
Uh,
Ooh.
no, that's not political at all. Thank you, Dennis. Again, pick a subgroup. It's all the same. Um, all right, we're up to third call. Who has that? Ben raised his hand. I think I have you on the list anyway, Ben, but let's see.
Oh, do you have it from what I put on the community?
Yes, is that
Yes.
what you?
Uh,
No, not that one. Where to go? Sorry. Well, we
meeny,
could go
miny,
there
mo.
with. Yeah, let's just go there. I did have a prepared slide. I was looking at your question, so it's a good one. So you're bringing up, this is kind of another one of those behaviors, different between Bootstrap 3, Bootstrap 5. I didn't have a chance to try this out at all, but the preserve layout option is giving you a difference. Um, so first of all, let me,
Well, the difference that I'm noticing is that it's not that the preserve layout is giving a different behavior. It's that for all intents and purposes, in the latest version that I'm running, 1.2.5, preserve layout would be obsolete because you get preserve layout regardless of whether that's checked or not.
are you in a spot where you can demonstrate the
Yep.
behavior you're talking about? That would probably be better than me trying to reproduce it.
Sure. Excuse me. Hold on one sec.
Sure.
Okay. Hopefully everyone can see the screen.
Yes.
So this row here has a whole bunch of controls and they show or hide based off of this selection here. So you'll see, like in this case, the row goes away. That's perfectly fine. Um, this is all good. But once I get to here, this guy shows up here. In previous version, or Bootstrap 3 when I was using, this guy was on the left. All of these, unless you checked preserve layout, this would always snap to the left if there was nothing visible before it. But now,
It's
even
just
with preserve layout not checked, which I rarely ever use, it's leaving them where they are. So now I'm getting this behavior where it's jumping around, and while it's not that big of a deal, it, just, it still irks me.
Yep.
I mean, just to show in the old system, right? So here you got your days, day, but then you see that, I mean, it blinks, but it
Yeah.
always snaps to the left if there's nothing else to the left of it. But now it's preserving that spacing.
Is there um first of all, if anybody, as always, if anybody knows the answer to this, it'd be great.
I
But
think this is a consequence because we switched to CSS grid, which is a lot better for positioning. But looks like this is a side effect of it. If you wanted a technical answer, I'm not sure if it helps, but that might be the reason.
All right, so I guess it's just something we're gonna have to live with.
so could a manual layout overcome that? I would think it would. But of course, I think that's labeled obsolete as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think in Bootstrap 5, that's like going away. So I'd rather not
Yes, I agree.
purposely use something right now that I know in the future is going to be disappearing.
Yep. Um, yeah, I don't know an easy way around that.
Okay,
You
it was
might,
worth a shot.
you might, I mean, to keep it from jumping around changing, instead of changing visibility, if you changed enabled, uh, so then things wouldn't jump around at all, but I'm not sure that would improve your user experience.
Trying to think, hold on. Um, Binding, oh, the binding enabled instead of, gotcha.
It wouldn't jump because everything would be visible,
Right.
and then one would stand out more than the other, and you could probably tinker with the CSS to make them even more pronounced so that um, your eye would be drawn to the things that you're supposed to fill in. It might be an okay user experience. I understand it's a change, but just throwing it out there.
I'll try it.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure out where we are and why. Okay. There was I'm going to bring up a topic since well, I guess I could say fourth call. I don't want to rush anybody. If somebody came with something, we can do that. Anyone else?
Just the content module, the discussion,
Yep, that's
to put
where
it on the list.
it was on the list.
Cool.
So at DNN Summit, I had a conversation with a couple of people, and there was some discussion about how Plant an App can be used to help user-provided content in a structured way. So one of the examples was that you enter in the from a that you provide a way for a user to provide the content, the words that you want to display, but not allow the HTML, or maybe allow very limited HTML. But the idea is that you didn't want blinking purple, or have to explain to people HTML. So if you provided a fill in the blank style for storage of the things that you want to display, then the structure that's provided by the mechanism, the site ends up looking the same. So I don't know if how well I explained that, and if anyone else wants to engage on what the problems they face are. We're here and listening because we have ideas that where we want to be able to provide a content module or a content capability from within the product, but we want to understand how people actually use that.
Yeah, this is Mark. I actually did have customers with blinking purple text, so I'm all for this.
Did I do an adequate job of explaining, or maybe there's more nuances to what you're trying to accomplish?
I mean, I could say it again with different words, but it's the same thing that you just said. Yeah, we want to control what shows on our sites when we let our customers or our clients enter their own text. We want that to be formatted correctly for the site and not give them free rein to do things that would be inconsistent with the site formatting.
Are there some level of things that you do allow, like underline or hyperlink or bold, or nada?
Situation by situation, the answer could be different. But overall, I would say vastly reduced amount of formatting. Sometimes for titles, you might want to let them decide if it needs to be underlined or not, and that could be a checkbox. But most of the time, we would want it to be very controlled, and we would be the ones controlling the formatting. Don wants to chime in.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes, I was a follow-up question on all of this, and I may have missed that you said it, but is the concept that you're using the Planet App form module to display the data? So I'm sorry, it's telling me to lower my hand. All right, I will be happy to do that. That is it that you use forms to display the data as well as collect the data for that space, or and that brought up another thought that I've never tried before, probably should have. The HTML module has a setting for allow tokens, and does your tokens is it including your tokens when it says allow tokens?
So I mean, first, the technical answer, if you use the HTML module and you say allow tokens, then yes, any of our tokens or the DNN tokens all will be resolved. If you uncheck that, then you see the brackets and the words and nothing resolves. And then either of those, under the current scenario, either of those two methods could be used. You could have a form that displays the content. You could have tokens that display the content and put it where you want. And I think from our perspective, and Bogdan, if you have information, please jump in. But we're trying to figure out what a content module might look like in our context, where we have data tables that we can draw from, and how would that display? So having some kind of a module where you could define some templates for the structure of okay, this is we have this content, I want it to display in this format. So sometimes that might be a title with a paragraph underneath. Sometimes that might be a title with a paragraph and a picture. or no title, just a paragraph and a picture. That you could define different templates, and then in a standard way, you've got content, you've got template, display it. That's my vision. Bogdan, do you have a
Or a list with a filter, a formatted list, something like that.
Yeah, I've often had to make something that looked very much like a list, and it would be a variable number of entries in the list. So it would have some sort of repeating aspect to it. But it's not always like that. It could be just one block, one paragraph, maybe a paragraph with a title. It could be any combination of those
Right.
on page.
And basically, the way you do it is razor tokens, Mark, with HTML modules, or do you have a different method?
I haven't really jumped into Razor very heavily at all, so I typically am using just I use a form to let the user type in their whatever they want to put on a page, and then I use a combination of things to show what they've typed. And sometimes it's HTML, like we discussed in the HTML module. Other times it's a listing with tokens in it that or standard ways of retrieving the data. Or sometimes it's a form that is being used to display their structured content. Getting it in is pretty standard. You use a form and you allow them to type into it or paste into it. Getting it out so far has been variable depending on the situation that you need. Repeating, not repeating, big titles, small titles, side by side. So far, I've been making that as needed. And I know I'm saying the word I'm doing this, but I want to let you know that there's a lot of people in DNN who need this structured content. It was a big topic of discussion just a small number of years ago. Everyone was saying we got to move to structured content. There were several modules that were made. Several of them fell by the wayside. What other people are using is the 2SXC product. You know, I'm not using that. Most of us with Plant and App are not using that, but not all. So we need to do it some other way.
In the past, I think I've mentioned this, and I think that what we're envisioning now is more robust than this. But in the past, I've mentioned the idea that we have something that does a lot of what action form does, but less heavy on the page, where you have something that can, will have initialization events that happen, and then you can use the data from the initialization events to create content. But there might be better ways to do it than initialization events. Like maybe you create the content. If you say you want a formatted list, you have a template for a formatted list that you use, and then you tell it where to get the data for the formatted list, and then and then there you have an action stack like you would have on initialization, but the action stack defines the data that's going to go into the formatted list. But we're talking about something that's moving in that direction, correct?
Yeah, I think we are. From my perspective, I mean, I think what I've heard is that in a form, in a current action form, you could do these things, acquire the data that you want, maybe display it with a Razor script, and so
Or you just take the tokens that are created at initialization and you put them into a static text field, and I think that's a pretty common thing that we all do. We use an action form for the initialization events so that we can put data into a static text field. But then the problem is, of course, with a static text field is you don't have an HTML editor. First of all, you have to actually create the HTML or a script. But yeah, I think that's one of the ways that action form is used now, but it's kind of heavy for using it just for that purpose.
Well, and I was going to say Razor script is not it's not a light or a necessarily an easy concept versus if we created a module that conceptualized, okay, you have a list and some kind of a structure for here's how to design a repeater or how to an easy translation rather than having to handle it all.
Mhm.
I mean, I think when you do it by way of Razor, you're handling the data, the iteration, the formatting, maybe using whatever HTML. So it's kind of you have to know quite a bit to be able to accomplish it that way, right?
Yeah.
I would make the same comment.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would make the same comment. Yeah, it requires more Razor knowledge that you wouldn't, thus far, you don't have to have. It's a nicety. It makes things happen if you know it.
Right. So as we do with other low code patterns, if we think about the needs and define uh, in a where Plant and App is doing the heavy lifting, we provide some kind of a content module that um, pulls out that um, concept. Um, Basically, you're responsible for acquiring the data in a particular way. Maybe it's a list, maybe it's a um, SQL, whatever. But then you say, okay, display it using this template. Blah, it's done, rather than having to roll up your sleeves and do Razor or other
Right.
folks. Yeah. And I know I've done it in a different way. For example, I have done create a list and then iterate the list and build HTML. Um, and so you have to understand the HTML versus not that it's that hard, but it's just another something to do.
Yeah, but understanding HTML is probably a basic thing that anybody doing this line of work would need to do. But yes, within the context of no code, low code, ideally we wouldn't have to do that. No HTML.
No.
Yeah, the HTML, but also it saves time just not having to write it every time. But then the concept of iterating something adds extra complexity to it, and it builds from there. If we had the ability to say that here's the data I want to use, and say you want to create a table, and this is the data I want to use. And it could, and and we had something that would automatically interpret the columns, say, okay, so this is from that data that you said you wanted to use. It has these columns, and and then applies a standard table format that somebody has defined previously.
So to add a bit of nuance to the conversation, our idea with the content module is that we think about all the people involved to make it simple for each. For example, what does the person that manages the content has to do? They wouldn't be technical at all, right? So they wouldn't see this, even the HTML, even some technical concept. They would only see, like Mark suggested, a form where they fill the data. And then we have the people building templates, which are not low code, no code developers. So maybe Razor is already too much for this category of people. So how can you create these templates in an easier way, right? So you have all these drag and drop editors that of course could be a source of inspiration. And then finally, you have the more technical people that can build a more advanced template in a code manner, being Razor, for example, or HTML templates.
Yes, and I know from my perspective, I'm looking, because my team is so small, I want something that can be deployed quickly, mostly for non-technical people, and can be repeated whenever we need it. So the content module would be a godsend for us, because I've been pushing my team to develop methods and processes that we build once and deploy repeatedly, because I don't want my team having to be rebuilding and spending too much time on things. I want them to spend time up front, figure it out, and then execute and execute and execute. You know, saving time over time, because we're so small. I just don't want that type of effort every time you have to do a project.
That makes a lot of sense. And so that lends itself to the suggestion that it should be templatized or have the ability to save what you've created, the layout of the display needs to be a template that a person can then grab out of a list and apply to another location.
And we're taking it a step further, where we're working with this right now to connect Figma, so we can control the design of our projects from a central place. So we're been sinking a significant amount of time on that, so that we're kind of like sharpening our axe. Then once we get it, we'll be able to deploy sites, pre-build components, etc., and deploy pretty advanced UI UX experiences very fast. So that's what I've been working on. And Bogdan's team has been very helpful with a Figma connector module, which we're working through right now. And we're actually open to assist with the content module development. We're fighting to it for some budget now to assist Bogdan's team.
I'm curious, anybody else in this community, in this group, is using Figma to build designs, or you're just buying already built skins and using whatever they provide?
I'm going to take that as no Figma.
Yeah, I guess we're spoiled because we have a really fantastic UI UX developer who's really bringing Figma to us, and for us it makes sense because again, my team is so small, just really sinking in on efficiency and to develop a design in one place where it can be deployed on PlanetApp, and also SharePoint 365 sites as well. There's a module for that as well. So we're investing pretty heavily on Figma workflow methodology.
So I'm recalling that I think that one of Mandeep's products, I think he called it the visualizer, seems to be similar to what you are describing now, that you might be trying to put together. You might look at that if you haven't already for some inspiration of what they've put together.
Yeah, we started with Mandeep's products, but sadly the database implementation for products just doesn't lend itself for how we prefer to work. But we have looked at that and used it, and we're basically moving away from it now.
David, do you think that the PlanetApp team could learn anything from looking at the visualizer?
Yeah, I mean, we actually when we first started, before we got into PlanetApp, looked at it. Much of what we're doing is kind of in alignment with the visualizer, because that's where we started actually. But our big problem was their database tables was just not in a structure that lent itself for easy use, because they have this big monolithic table and everything is like reference tables, and it's just a big spaghetti mess. Very expensive to build backends around those tools. So
That when I was looking into it before, and I thought it just made it more difficult.
oh, it's brutal. Yeah, it's very expensive to do, customizations around it. So hence Plantain app has been a godsend for us. And we've been spoiled by Patrick and the team.
We when we redid our website many years ago, the Plantain App website, Aaron from the community helped us build it, and he's a heavy user of Too Sexy content. So that's how we got to use Too Sexy content as well, which I think one part of the job they did very well, which the way they say it, make it easy for secretaries to edit the content, right? But then on the other side, on the building experience, it's a pain. Same thing with the data model. It's very opaque what's going on and how to get it, how to build something around it. And the templates as well, it's very, very technical and complex. Do you guys have experience with Too Sexy content or other content module? I think open content is another one that you see good things that we should get inspired from.
No, I know my gang looked at Too Sexy some time ago when you mentioned it to us, and I think we also looked at some other modules for like a news site module, but it just ends up having too many different code bases to manage. And again, as a small team, it just brings additional complexity, which makes it difficult to respond quickly to building solutions. Because now you got to be managing all these different products with their updates and sometimes cost. And I work for Governor Bermuda, and it becomes a budgeting pain in the neck. So hence the more we can do inside Plantain App, the better from my point of view.
Agreed, and I hope someone else chimes in with their use of structured content. But Bogdan, I would repeat what you said the same way. Yeah, I know that Too Sexy is there, and I've had the same experience with it being very easy to put the data in once something is created for the secretaries, like you suggest. But setting that up was more difficult than it needed to be, and it's a hurdle. It's a barrier to overcome in getting going with that. So I would repeat that. I would say that over in the DNN community, what was discussed and what gets repeated when the topic comes up is the concept of, quote, you shouldn't be letting your clients enter text on their site, end quote. So the deal is whenever you turn a client loose on your site, you're at their mercy as to how they're going to screw up the formatting or the structure or the standards that you've placed on the site to make it look good and professional. And so that goes for every page. Now, on some sites, I can really see how that is the best way to go. But some of my clients, well, the majority of my clients they're smaller clients and they want to get their hands in there and they don't want to call me every time they want to change the wording in a paragraph. And that also, I can understand that very easily. So there's a need for this to give them a way to change the text without messing up the design. So, I mean, I know you know this already. I guess I'm just saying it again. There was another module that's coming to mind, something called Open Content, that is, I believe that's a free module for DNN users, and there's going to be something to learn from what they're doing as well if you take another look.
I have used, I tried to use Too Sexy, had a terrible time with it. I want to be fair to those folks because they're very nice people. That I was looking for a listing, and they were basically um, designed as a here's a template. Here are places where you can let your user put information in, and then we'll display it nicely, but just one time and not a listing. Um, and the conversation is getting me confused because that's what is great about Planet App is that you have this listing capability and you can repeat a look over and over again. I'm not positive where I need an individual content module because I know that forms can do that for me. I could just drop an HTML field on the page and format it with information that I've collected with another form where they have, here's the person's name, here's the person's paragraph, here's the content that I want to style myself without having them touch it. And I can do all of that right now. So I'm not positive what I need more. Maybe the listing, the card thing is difficult to customize. The table is pretty good, but there's some customizations that can be done there. Maybe that's where, in my mind, that's where I would want you to go and give me more capabilities with the listing module, and not an individual module that can be customized. I already have that ability, and it was easy to get from what Planet App provided. I saw it right away. It was, and I think that most people that are low coders, I don't code very much anymore. I don't know RazorScript. In fact, that's the first thing they said. Well, if you need to know RazorScript, and I said, well, I don't want to go that way, but I can do everything with what you have right now.
That link I put in the chat, uh, that's all database driven, and we use that template. The template changes if you change your menu selection on the achievements pull down. The template changes to match the category that you selected. Yeah, there you go. And it's all database driven. It pulls in the images from the user is able to upload those images that they want to display on their profile, and it pulls that in and lays it on the image there.
And that's all done with Too Sexy then, right?
Yeah,
And you had to create Razor scripts that went and grabbed the data and then laid it out.
I don't know exactly how it was done. Jerry wrote the API for it, and David Poindexter had somebody that created the initial template for us. So we're feeding the data to it, but I'm not sure what David did exactly. But we use this heavily on this blog, on those two, uh, the leadership and the achievements pages both.
I had the exact same situation. David, he's quite the wizard. He knows this stuff very well. And
Yeah,
there's a couple of DNN Dave videos. If you wanted to go out there onto YouTube and see the DNN Dave videos, when he first got started, I was his first guest trying to figure this all out. And we were using Too Sexy and we were using Razor scripts and trying to put some information together in a listing. And we got pretty far with the first page doing all of that. And I knew that I had many pages afterwards and I gave up on it and I shifted to a different solution. I put something in the chat as well when I saw your post in there. And what I have in there is using the listing module for it's all database driven, and it's the background of the or the back end of a government website where there's the public wanted to see this information to see what the listings were, the inmate listings were, and this is using the listing module for doing the same thing. So I mean, I could have prettied it up and styled it, but again, this is using the card capability, and that's where I would love to have more flexibility in using the card capability to lay out the card any way I want, just some kind of a template thing. I think the legacy way of doing listing, although I think that's obsolete or is heading towards that, whatever, seem to give me more capability, but you have to, you got all the you got, a complete blank slate as opposed to giving me more flexibility in a more structured way with the listing module. But this, point counterpoint kind of a thing with using Planet App for this kind of a thing.
Exactly how I would have done it. Exactly. Uh, I know, Dale, we're coming to our time lot in, and I'll just say that on the too sexy thing, to do too sexy well, you've got to be heavy in C# and Razor. There's no getting out of it. And if you are, and if you're David, you can do some really nice stuff with it. There's no knocking the product, but it's for experts only. It really
Very
is.
true. Very true.
But I would have used the grid module with the cards, and maybe we can provoke Bogdan and the team to just kind of keep bringing technology in that cards template, if you will. Just maybe we just kind of keep guiding them along, and they can keep improving that template as we go through time. But that was really pretty. I'm just glad my picture wasn't on that website. That's all I'm saying.
I assume that's a publicly available website.
Yes, it is publicly available. I wouldn't. Right, exactly. There's loved ones that want to know dates and information and that kind of thing that people want to look that up, and so so they wanted that form, and it's a very neat tie-in. They're very protective of their data. We have a single point where we get the information, and then we use the Planet App tools to lay all the information out.
Nice.
We had tried a number of the Planet App solutions that we have are government site based. I love it. Oh, so I got to throw this in too, David. I'm looking out my window at icicles hanging off the window, and it started out this morning at 6 degrees. So if you need anybody there in Bermuda, just let me know.
Yeah, we're suffering at about 70 some degrees. It's pretty awful.
You poor thing.
Perhaps we should have an in-person Low-Code Campfire. We should schedule for next winter.
A DNN summit, maybe?
I've been arguing for that for a few years now.
Plant an app summit. All right. Good conversation across the board. Thanks for the early questions. We'll do this again next week, so do join us. And if you have a moment, you're welcome to hang around for our Afterglow segment. That's where we turn the recording off, enjoy a virtual adult beverage, and start our weekend. All right. Thanks, everyone.